And family constellation is extremely helpful in helping us to find out what are some of these hidden entanglements that we have so that we are able to remove ourselves from the entanglement and therefore find our own potential and freedom. I would really say that all this father and power thing is something that anybody who want to quit smoking should really look into very seriously. It's always important when you come for a family constellation work is that you have an open mind because you really get to see something sometimes from a different angle. And it could be so mind-blowing to you that you might just totally shut off.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with dolls and all these things, people might think that they are some sort of woo-woo. That
Yeah,
hey,
I get a lot. I mean, I always like make a joke out there and say it's like, oh, my dolls will come and talk at night, you know. Actually, we have a healing circle every month where we come together to do cases for individual. So that will be really helpful for any beginners who want to look into what is family constellation, who want to try out family constellation.
Hey everyone, this is Eddy here. If you've never heard about family constellation, this video will explain every single thing you need to know about how the complications that rise within your family could cause addiction, and also how you can free yourself from the addiction to smoking. Watch this interview session till the end. You will learn so much about family constellation. You can't believe it. You may need to watch this more than once.
hey everyone, this is Eddie, the quit smoking specialist here, and today we've got a very special guest with us. We have Kelvin from Heart of Sophia, and he's going to be sharing some of his secrets on how we can help you to quit smoking through family constellation. So thank you, Kelvin, for joining me in this interview today.
Yeah, hi Andy. So thank you for inviting me for this Zoom meeting, and I think it's really an honor for me to be here to talk to you about family constellation and how it can help us in terms of clearing, healing addictions, and also helping us to understand ourselves better. Let me just introduce myself. So I'm Kelvin. So I'm the director and also the chief consultant for Heart of Sophia, an integrated wellness center where we provide different services of healing and reading and divinatory work so that to help us to understand ourselves more and to also work with some inner psychological aspects that of ourselves. So we have a team of specialists. So we have many modalities that we offer in Heart of Sophia. So for me, my main focus is on family constellation, astrology work, and also in terms of color therapy called Orasoma. But today we're just talk about family constellation. So family constellation is actually a modality or a psychoanalytical skill that this German specialist called Bert Hellinger, who passed away recently, and in these recent years, who actually created this system to help us to understand the dynamics of the family using what we call the morphic field. So family constellation, in very simple words, is actually how we are all inside this family energy, and then we affect one another very intricately through these energy ley lines. So sometimes when we have a certain idea, like I want to be rich or I want to be healthy, but we go opposite direction. Sometimes it could be because deep inside us embedded, we have certain belief systems that actually got influence from the family and that led us to connect with the outcome in a not so positive way. So like, for example, somebody who maybe had, a lot of money issues may find out that it's not that they are not having enough effort to save money, but rather it's that every time they save money, money just disappears. So
Yes.
this could be not due to the fact that the individual has not put enough effort. It could be because that there are certain entanglements that he is caught up in. And family constellation is extremely helpful in helping us to find out what are some of these hidden entanglements that we have so that we are able to remove ourselves from the entanglement and therefore find our own potential and freedom. So this is one aspect of family constellation work. Of course, the word constellation also refers to the stars. So one of the things I do is called astro family mapping, which basically we link up with people's family groups and see in what way they are similar in pattern with their ancestors or with their family members using astrology. So that is the work that I do in regards with family constellation.
Okay, so it does sound like if a person faces a problem, could be due to money, relationship, addiction, sometimes the problem is not because of the person himself. It could be due to the family.
Yes, I would say that it is a very common situation where many people or my clients, they are caught in many years of a certain pattern. Then suddenly when they start to realize, oh, this pattern actually belongs to my grandmother or my grandfather or my father. And then when they have this realization, they start to think about how to change that pattern. Then that is where a change can really start to take place. Because we believe that for us, in order to make a change, we must have a very clear awareness that where this thing come from. So that's why one of the things like people always like to talk about is, oh, I'm fighting the crave, I'm fighting. But actually, the truth is, who are we fighting against? Or what are we fighting against? So that's why the term sometimes could be not about a fight, but really about who am I following? Who am I, copying or mimicking that I am having this behavior? Sometimes, of course, in some very rare occasion where the whole family seems to be having no problem in smoking, suddenly can have an individual who is a heavy smoker. Then we trace the background, we discover that, like for example, because in Singapore, there was this use of opium in the earlier days. Then the grandfather could be an opium smoker because he was a migrant and that sort of stuff. So that could be what we call an entanglement. And it could be transgeneration rather than from the father down to the son. So these are what we call allegiance, where we are following somebody, where we are like trying to mimic somebody without knowing it consciously. The grandchild may not know the grandfather at all, but they just follow. And then until one day, the person keeps smoke until, somebody just said, oh, wow, you're just like grandfather. Ding. Then there's this like light bulb moment that, oh yeah, there is this connection somewhere through the smoking. So this is what we mean by who are we trying to follow? Who are we trying to mimic? So that's why when we emphasize that let's fight the craving, end of the day, the outcome will always tend to be a struggle or tend to be, it goes back to the original situation because when we are fighting, we are against something. So often a crave or addiction is like wanting us to connect with something, to fill a void. So the thing is, when you fight with the void, it's like you're fighting with a black hole. Then it's like, makes no sense. Because it's end of the day, the suction from the black hole is too strong. You can't win that fight if you allow yourself to fight with it. So rather than fighting with it, we always encourage our clients to understand it first. So this is the first fundamental that I always talk to people about addiction, that don't look at it as something you need to fight with first. First, find out who are we trying to follow, or imitate, or like copy, so to speak. Then that can begin the work very much with addiction and smoking.
It's very interesting, Kelvin, because when you say we try to fight our cravings, we try to fight the addiction, yes, it happens a lot of time. And this brings to our topic today, which is what is the main cause of addiction to smoking? And you mentioned something about following and mentioned something about perhaps they're trying to mimic the grandparents. So does this mean that when a person goes through an addiction or has an addiction problem, if they simply look up to their parents or grandparents or will they be able to understand what is happening in themselves and why are they having this addiction?
Well, it's actually quite important to realize that our completion of who we are is actually a connection with our own family. I mean, we are brought up in family units. We are not individuals that are from the stone or from where. But so we slowly build up our own ideology of the world through the family.
Right.
Obviously all experts will also agree that if your whole family smokes, very likely you will smoke.
Yes, that's
Because
the environment factor. Yeah,
it's a
environmental factor.
But
Yes.
what happens if the whole family doesn't smoke, but yet this individual smoke?
Yes.
And it comes to the point of what we call conscience. Because when we are in groups, there is a pressure to belong to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes our belonging is not only to the family. It could be with social circles. It could be with certain groups of things. And that's where peer pressure comes in, where we
Yes.
want to belong to our friends. And if
Right.
our friends are all smokers, then of course we will also, in the pressure or in the conscience, want to belong there and smoke.
Yes.
So that is also one of the reasons why people may pick up this thing. But in a situation where it's like through peer pressure, the chances of them recovering from social smoking is actually easier because the allegiance to this group is not as strong as to the family. Usually in terms of in the family, if let's say there's somebody who is a heavy smoker, randomly the family will also choose somebody to represent that person. And usually from research of family constellation, Bert Hellinger discovered that most addiction, rather is it drugs or sex or cigarettes, the connection usually is because the figure is not there, or the connection with the father somehow is broken. That's why there is this tendency to fill this void of the father through smoking. So of course, now as we are in a diversified family environment, usually the authority figure, that means the one that is like the father figure, like the father-like figure, would be the one that is like influencing this whole addiction thing. So actually, in our everybody is prone to addiction because
Right.
in our astrology we all have this planet called Neptune, and Neptune sometimes is a generation thing. It influences us to go into certain addictions or in the negative sense. And just a little teaser, when Neptune was in Leo, which is in 1915 to 1922, that period of year was when they discovered that cigarettes were actually harmful to the human body. Because in the late 1922, there was a report for the post effects of heavy smoking, because during that time was the post-war already. Everybody started smoking, and then they discovered there was lung cancer and all that stuff. So it was very interesting how, because this Neptunian energy got into the limelight, so everybody started to realize, oh my God, actually cigarettes is no good. So that's why I say it's a national thing, it's a global thing, it's also a individual thing, that we all have this tendency to go into it. But it's just that how it's triggered is usually through the family, through the father.
Right. So what does it really mean, the connection with the father? Does it mean that if, let's say for example, the father has been very busy at work during the person's childhood, and chances are when they grow up they're not so close, and then this person will grow up and have a tendency to be addicted?
Okay, this might not be true because, okay, of course, your scenario will be definitely a very clear cut. I'm cut off from my father because I have very little time with my father. Sometimes people might argue, but my father is always around. Why is it that I'm still picking up smoking?
Right.
The problem is sometimes the mother could be in the way. That means, like, for example, the mother and the father have some problem. And they
Right.
tell son, don't you be like your father, don't get close to your father, or your mother is always cutting in when your father is trying to talk to you. This is also what we call a third party influence to cut off that connection. So that's why unknowingly, a lot of times when the child and the father is talking, we always advise the mother to give them the space, because the thing is this space helps to curb all this. I give a very good example was that I got one client who was a heavy smoker, and she was really smoking like 3 packets a day.
Wow.
So when she first came to me, I looked at her and I say, oh wow, the thing is I can really smell the cigarette. And every time during halfway she'll go to smoke during the class, and I say, this is very disturbing for your life, isn't it? And I discovered that she was the father left the family at a very young age. So that's why this thing caught up. So I did a work with her, and then later on, after she realized that the smoking connects with the father, she quit smoking completely,
Oh.
totally stopped. And it was very funny because and people might be very skeptic about it, yeah. But you think about it, one of the reasons why people stop smoking usually is because they are about to become fathers. So for the sake of the child, they stop smoking. So this is like they become the father. That's why they stop smoking. And same goes for a lot of mothers. They try to also stop smoking because they become mother. This maturity of energy that they realize that they become parents themselves also encourages people to stop smoking. Of course, some fail because they are not at that level of maturity. But usually, those who are really at that level of maturity, they can stop. It's rather they want to go into that level of responsibility and maturity. So that's why sometimes smoking is like a way, I feel, that people move away from a certain reality. Like this world, because it's so harsh, it's so much pain, so stressful. So smoking sometimes become like opium. They help people to escape from the reality. But we are in this sense of helplessness of the world because we are disconnected with our own power, which is from the Father. So because the Father in family constellation, we believe that helps us to connect with the world, help us to have the power to deal with the worldly problems. But sometimes because we're so disconnected with our Father, we don't have that power. So in order to fill up the void, we use cigarettes. That's why cigarettes and opium were one of the ways that people move from suffering. And when they don't have it, they start to go into that, we call it cold feet, type of thing.
Yeah.
So that is the situation. And if we think about opium, which was the earlier form of smoking, because we do have to agree that after opium, then cigarettes came about. So actually smoking is a very long history thing, from all the way from Arabia, all the way down to now where we are now. So in the sense now we even have the e-cigarettes, which is also smoking. But the point is, people like to believe that it's less harmful, but it's like it's still smoking. So anyway, all these forms of smoking is really a way of like giving you a sense of like, oh, suddenly a pleasure, a relief, and then you suddenly you just go into this zone where everything is thing. I mean, in the ancient times, people smoke the weed, the marijuana is to go into altered states of reality. Opium also does that. Cigarette sometimes also does that because it gives a illusion of buff. Like suddenly you just get hyped to do things. So I feel it gives you power to deal with your day-to-day thing. Because because when people are feeling no good, they go and smoke. Then after that, oh, I feel so I can do and do. I deal with the world. So this is power. So that's why again it goes back to the topic on the father and the father. So I would really say that all this father and power thing is something that anybody who want to quit smoking should really look into very seriously, because this is maybe perhaps one of the first few steps that you can take in order to stop the to curb the smoking situation.
Right. So, which is very true because most of my clients, they smoke because they say they feel very stressed, and then once they take a cigarette and take a puff, suddenly the stress just goes away. And that's where in this world which is full of stress and all, that it seems to be their go-to solution to allow them to release them of the stress. But they just don't know how to deal with the stress if they do not smoke. And when you mentioned this thing about, okay, the power and the connection with the father, and how this person, once he knows that, oh, it's connection with the father that's causing this addiction, does this mean that once you're aware of this connection that is lacking within themselves with the father, how will they eventually quit smoking because of this connection? Do they have to rekindle the relationship with the father? Do they have to try to see the father more often? What do they need to do?
Okay, this is really a very tricky question, because we talk about just now, we want to belong to groups. So
Mm,
if let's say our own father also smokes, okay, then this is where the tricky part comes. Because if our own father also smoked, it means that he is also disconnected with his own father too. So
okay.
in the sense, connecting with him, then the effect might not be as strong as how compared to a father without totally no addiction at all.
Mm,
And the point is then actually it's all about the synergy of the family again.
mhm,
We have to really look at how our family function, because we belong to group, we belong to the family unit,
mhm,
and there is something called allegiance. And
mm,
if we are seeing our whole family is smoking,
mhm.
then naturally we believe it's right to smoke. So that is a
Okay.
different category of things.
All right.
But because to just flippantly say, oh, so I'm aware that my father is the reason why I'm smoking. So if I build a connection, does it I stop smoking? It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. Because the human psyche is complex. It has many layers. So if we want to really curb smoking, especially if you're a heavy smoker,
Mhm,
understanding that your father's disconnection gives you awareness, then you have a choice. A
mhm,
choice to whether to continue this entanglement we speak of,
mhm.
to smoke, or to take up other ways to deal with your stress. Because a lot of people say, I have stress, that's why I need to smoke. Then actually the point is, can we find other ways to deal with the stress, which would be most how other experts would deal with it. But what I'm now adding in is, am I first connected with my father, who gives
Right.
me the power to deal with the problem? Because if I tell you to deal with the stress, but you have no power to deal with it, you're still going to go back to the smoking.
Very
Because
true.
that's the easiest way to so-called deal with the problem.
Yes.
But if you have understanding that, okay, my connection, my father is going to give me direction. How? Maybe when I talk to my father will give me some sound advice. Maybe when I'm close to my father, I can pour out whatever stress I'm having in my life with my father. And it doesn't matter if your father and you are not in talking terms, because you can always choose to talk with your father if you would like to. It's a choice. It's people sometimes when in their problem with their parents, they don't realize that we are all given choices. We are given choices to reconnect. We are given choices to form. And sometimes there are very extreme cases which I and do agree this exists, that the father is passed away, or no, not passed away, and this father is gone. Like for example, totally out of the life, left the family. These are extreme cases.
Mhm,
But the truth is, there are also authority figures in your life. like a older man that is like you treat like a father figure, or like, for example, your boss is like your father figure. But of
Okay.
course, boss is a little bit sensitive because you're working for him.
Right. Right.
But in your like an uncle or your grandfather, these are also father figures.
Or a
It's
coach or a
yeah,
mentor.
a coach, yeah, a mentor. Because we in Eric Burns' book, he talked about people seek permission. And usually this permission, we don't need to seek it only from the father. We can actually
Okay.
seek from an authority figure that we respect a lot. Because the father is also represented in the energy of teachers, coach, all these things. So when we have this power behind us, or we are aware we have this power behind us, talking to such people could be very helpful to supporting the process of curbing the addiction. I mean, there's no harm in this advice. You get what I mean? There's no harm in advising people to get closer to the father, unless the father is abusive. That's another story altogether. But if your father is abusive, your father has problems, there's always other authority figures you can turn to. And when you turn to these figures and you start to talk about your stress, your problem, and get supported, then naturally, of course, then you will not need to depend on cigarettes to deal with your stress. If stress is the cause of why you need to take cigarettes, and if you have other ways to deal with the stress, then of course, naturally, let's not talk about the nicotine and all the things first, because that is science. Yeah, there's always nicotine patch, there's always other things to substitute the nicotine. I mean, you can always give a lot of excuses for why you need to smoke. But the main reason why is because you needed to cope something, or you needed to deal with something. So obviously, if you can deal with something through other means, then smoking becomes secondary.
Right.
That is how we see it in that way. That rather than saying you shouldn't smoke, is okay, so is there other ways to deal with the problem to why you're smoking? That is the psyche at work. Of course, it's easier said than done, because firstly, do we have an authority figure that we can respect, and do you trust throughout to is a question mark myself. So that if the process that the client has to go and engage, to go and really work on it, so that they have this support to deal with this thing. That's why usually when they say in the advertisement, or when they are saying the promotion, the one of the ways to curb addiction is through the support of the family. I agree, but I put a but is because it's especially true if it's the father.
Right. And specifically, it has to be, if let's say, for example, if we don't have access to our father for whatever reasons, we can get it out of another authority figure. And I suppose it has to be a male figure. Is that important?
No, not necessarily has to be a male figure. I already say because we are in a diversified environment. In Singapore, it's a bit conservative, but in other parts of the world, like in Taiwan or in US, they are people who there are families that are both males or both females.
Right.
So that's where I mean that the person who wear the pants, basically.
Oh, okay. So in other words, if they've got a really supportive mom, or sometimes they're single mothers and stuff like that.
Yes, correct. That's true. If the mom plays the father role and the child looks at the mother like a father figure, that is also fine.
Okay. So they just so it's more like it's a symbol of authority and the person that they respect a lot.
Now, the sensitivity here comes in terms why I use the diversified family groups is because single mothers, regardless of what it is, there is always a father figure in the background of the child, because the thing is, a single parent can't give birth to a child. There's always a couple coming together, then a child is born. So in that sense, in the back of the psyche of the child, for even a single mother, because of divorce, the father is still there behind the background.
Right.
So that's why that one is not really say that is what I mean by the authority figure, because that child will still link to that father.
Okay.
And that is more complicated, because the thing that really requires a lot of work, because the thing is we have to bring that image of their father into the foreground instead of the background. Because a lot of single mothers will say, forget about your father, he didn't want us, blah blah blah. So all these things we have to throw it into the throw it away and put in the father into the foreground. So that is a very complicated situation. The more rare cases, which is because of more medical science improvement, because we're surrogate mothers and all that stuff, and surrogate fathers, that's why there are these diversified family groups. So in the case of like a lesbian couple, they get a donation from a person, the sperm,
Right.
give birth. This father is totally question mark.
Yes.
So then this is where then a figure of authority comes in as an example.
Right.
Then this thing will be more easy to deal with. But of course, it's again, it is a complex thing, the psyche. So this is just a very simple understanding, but it does not at all reflect the nature of the work, because it is so complicated. Because I really have to look at the family unit through the constellation work to understand where is the problem. Sometimes it might not be the father. It could be, like I was saying, somebody in the family died from smoking. Because remember, during the opium situation, a lot of people died from opium smoking.
Right.
And some people sometimes smoke in order to follow that type of destiny. And this is another category called I follow you. Like
Yes.
like allegiance to represent a family member that went missing. So this is another topic altogether, which that's why I say the complexity of this work and the richness of this and the richness of family constellation is that it offers you to look at your family through the work with representatives to discover what is the family happening or going on. Sometimes it might not be because of the father is missing, because sometimes we talk to the individual, father is okay, love the father, very close, still smoke. This is really then a question of, is there somebody in the family that died from smoking? Or and sometimes the person think, oh yeah, my grandfather died from smoking opium, or my grandmother, died from
or perhaps lung cancer
because of smoking. So all these things also contribute to why we keep on doing the action. This is then, in this case, is not about a loss of power. In this case, is I don't know why, but I just want to smoke.
Yes, and I think this one constitutes the most of the people who are trying to quit and they just can't quit, and they get so stuck. They've tried all the methods and they just can't quit. So
yeah, because they are trying to mimic a certain person's destiny in order to let that person be remembered. Because sometimes you do certain action, someone in the family say, oh wow, you look exactly like your grandfather. Oh wow, you look exactly like your whoever. So these are what we call mimicking or following. Then this is also helpful if we know who we are following, because we can use other ways to transform these energies so that we don't need to use smoking to follow that situation. So yeah, and usually a lot of people who have tendency to help others, save others, will fall into this category of I follow you. So that's why it will be very helpful for people who are often helpers or saviors to really examine in their family if there's anybody who have excessive smoking and got a problem from it. So if they have, then that could be also where they can start the work to heal themselves.
Right. And this is a very good point here, Kelvin. I would like to find out more from you. What can they do to heal themselves?
Okay, basically one of the of course main thing is they can have a family constellation session, which basically involves them to be in a circle or in a Zoom with the door to find out about the information. Of course, it's also important for them to track their own family background, especially if there's any freak accidents, like somebody died from smoking. Okay, like for example, in the US, sometimes it's very common where people smoke weed and marijuana and got into really serious problem. So these are what we call freak accidents.
Okay.
So in the sense that if they can look into all these freak accidents, they can also help them to understand better what is happening behind their background. So that is one thing.
Right.
The other thing is they can actually do an affirmation, or they can how they do the affirmation is that they can actually have a, if let's say it is the case of the father being missing, they can have a picture of their father, and then in their wallet or in their phone, now we can put on a wallpaper, and then before they smoke, "Father, I smoke this for you."
Oh,
Yeah, this technique actually is quite
interesting.
yeah, this is actually a quite a interesting technique, but actually sometimes it does work. It's like, "Father, I smoke this for you." Then slowly they will start to have some little change behind. Another way which what Bert Hellinger talked about was when you breathe in, the affirmation that you can say is, "Father, I breathe you in."
Oh,
Then this thing also this statement, but of course you have to say it sincerely. Of course you gotta but when you breathe and then you say, "Father, I take you in right now," you start to realize something. And this thing could have a very deep impact for some. I don't know, because sometimes it's very difficult to say the word "Father, I take you in," and especially for females actually. So when you take in the secret and you say this, psychologically something happens and it does support. So this is one meditate. We are not teaching like meditation, but it's like a moment of meditative thought that when we breathe in, we say, "Father, I take you in, I breathe you in." And then this creates an impact. You say it once or twice, it might not have the effect, because the thing is, this work, affirmation work, usually requires 21 days. Let's just put it this way, if psychologically, in a very simple way, if you don't like your father and you keep breathing and then you keep saying, "I'm taking you in," psychologically you will say, "I hate this secret." Isn't it?
Right,
It
right.
somehow also makes some sense, but of course,
Okay.
we are not aiming for that. We are aiming for the healing between you and your father. So that's why it stops that cigarette smoking. So in the sense, that is one way. The another way where it's very practical, but yet not everybody can do it, is you become a father yourself. In the journey of you becoming a father, every doctor will tell you, "Please don't smoke in front of the pregnant mother." So obviously it will give you a motivation factor. Because one of my clients stopped smoking because he became a father.
Yes, that's right.
So that's why I was saying, when you don't have the father figure, the only way is you become the father figure. Then that is when you stop smoking. Usually, if you want to look for a figure of authority, which I was talking about, it's always best to look for someone who is not in the same addiction. Because if the person is in the same addiction, you will naturally view him as a disempowered figure.
Right.
So, like for example, if you look for a teacher who is supposed to be an authority figure, and you tell him, "I have so much stress," and then he himself is smoking, you'll be like,
Yeah.
what's the point? So usually the authority figure you are supposed to look for to support you in the journey of quitting your smoking should be somebody who's not smoking himself. That's why in America it's very popular. They have this circle where people come in and then they talk about their addiction. And
Right.
that central figure who is hosting the whole circle should not be smoking too.
Yes.
Obviously, they usually will find somebody who's not smoking. That's the reason why. Because they are trying to mimic back using the authority figure to give permission to these people not to smoke.
Right.
So
Right.
every time when they come in and share, oh, this week I stopped smoking five cigarettes, everybody, oh, the teacher, oh wow, that's good. In Singapore we don't have this. And sometimes this kind of circle might not be very helpful if everybody in the group or someone in the group is stronger than the authority figure in that group. There are also peer leaders.
Right.
Like my whole group, this person is like the alpha.
Okay, yes.
But if this alpha is stronger than the teacher who is holding the whole circle, it won't work.
It
Because
doesn't work. Right.
because this alpha is smoking one, and then you'll be saying what's wrong. Then everybody will just this allegiance.
Okay, all right.
Mm.
So Kelvin, talking about all this, a way of healing ourselves, and then a person, yeah, we can teach them all these techniques about the breathing in the father, smoking for you, all these things, right? And after all these things, and if just doesn't work, they just don't understand why. How can family constellation help? Can they come to you for help?
Yeah, then this is where I was talking about the entanglement, where they are connecting to somebody who is outside their scope of understanding, and it's like a person who they want to mimic and follow. Then family constellation will help by having the representatives come in. Usually we will have someone to represent the work to come in to really represent the family unit. So they don't need the whole family to be around. The individual can just come. He choose. So usually, obviously, for addiction, I will choose between the father and the mother. And
So is this in a group setting, or how
it's
does
in
it
a
work?
usually it's in a group setting or in the door setting where I will use figurines to do the work through Zoom, or in the but I usually prefer live because you can see the emotional display of how the representative work with one another. Of course, through the doors we can see the dynamics, the distance, the emotions through the colors, that they are dealing with one another. So that is also helpful. So in the sense, like for example, I was lecturing for one of the international conference for family constellation, and we were talking about migration. I was saying usually migration has something to do with the mother. Then I chose the client wanted to choose a figure. I randomly pick out. The mother was white in color. He was also white in color. I said, come on, this is what I mean. So this is what I mean by information. When we have the sufficient information to work with the situation, that is where we are able to make good use of this information to make changes. So every constellation circle is not a magic circle where everybody come and suddenly poof, your addiction goes disappear. Every constellation circle is actually a way for you to harness the information you need so that you can understand what is going on and therefore do something about it to change the nature of the situation.
Okay. And they don't need to come with their parents or the whoever. They just need to come to you.
Yeah, it will be very helpful if they know a background information about their family. Like for example, whether they have any family members who have freak accidents, anybody who was outcast from the family, anybody who had similar addictions. Then after that, we can use this information to find out more.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not required for them to even like say what happened to that person. They just need to say, I have this uncle or I got this grandmother. That's it. I don't need to know the grandmother story and how she got into the smoking kind of thing. No, we don't need that. Because the morphic field will display what is the root cause of that caused that situation. And if you are very helpful in terms, it will be very helpful we come with an open mind. Because sometimes the problem with family constellation and people is that people are not aware of their story, but family constellation tell them a part of the story that they are not aware of. And that's where they struggle with the information. So it's always important when you come for a family constellation work is that you have an open mind because you really get to see something sometimes from a different angle. And it could be so mind-blowing to you that you might just totally shut off.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with dolls and all these things, people might think that they are some sort of woo-woo. That
Yeah,
hey,
I get a lot. I mean, I always like make a joke out of it and say it's like, oh, my dolls will come and talk at night, like thinking about what is happening on the day. But no, actually it doesn't. Basically, it's all our psyche. I mean,
uh-huh.
we always choose and pick things that is similar to us. So that is how
Right.
we work. So how the doll relate to you is because we are having a session and we have an interaction, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting whatever information based on our interaction. Our
Mm-hmm.
body language, our somatics, all these things will contribute to the whole situation. So in a sense, it's not a, oh, I'm channeling or I'm like calling upon your great dead grandmother, especially 7 months now, so it's very easy to like call upon. No, no, I'm not doing all these things because these are things that doesn't belong into the realm of psyche. The realm of psyche is all indicated in true symbology, in true interaction and all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why that's how police can pick up whether somebody is lying. He didn't channel that person. Is
Right.
studying the somatics of the person that help the police know if that person has something wrong. Like if you go custom, why so many people every day walk, they only catch a few individual, but not everybody. That's not because they have like a crystal ball to tell them which person is faking one. There are things that we do as a science to
Mm-hmm.
find out information. And this is one of the signs actually.
Oh, so it's something like how the way they talk, the way
Mm.
the words that they use.
Like some people they talk like old grandmother, then I say, oh, why? Like sometimes some people are very young.
Right.
And then they talk like some 50, 60-year-old grandparent type
Mm-hmm.
figure. And then I'm like
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh wow, who are you trying to mimic?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Makes
this is
sense.
what I mean.
Right.
Yeah. So this is what I mean by, it's sometimes so easy to just realize that actually we are not being ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a typical family constellation session, how long does it last?
Usually the interview or I will do an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And that interview part could be a quick 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
1 5.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the work generally I will try to keep it around 30 minutes to 45 because
Okay.
because family constellation is not a grandmother story or it's not a theatre. It's for us to find out vital information. Actually, the
Mm-hmm.
shorter it is, the better.
Right.
Yeah, because after the work, there
Mm-hmm.
will be the support to you.
Mm-hmm.
And like if the story is too long, our mind can only process so much.
Mm-hmm.
Then the information become not so useful anymore. So that's
Okay.
we want to keep the information crisp and sharp and clear,
Right.
so
Right.
that you get the point and you
Mm-hmm.
make the changes. Nevertheless, family constellation has a whole dynamics of energy or
Mm-hmm.
um or spiritual healing at work. But we are not going to go there and put it on a very layman term. It provides very specific information too. And that part is also very much appreciated. And if we can make good use of that, actually it does help us to grow significantly just based on that information. But a lot of times the attitude of clients that come for clinic consultation is, I have a problem, we do this session, let's clear this problem. No, sometimes it doesn't work this way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the awareness to the problem that
Mm-hmm.
really is helpful for us to make the change.
So it's a matter of getting the client to understand and be aware of, oh, okay, I'm having this problem because of this, that, and based on this understanding, they will have a better chance of getting themselves healed from the situation.
Correct, because they have to do homework, right? Like for example, after you know this is the situation,
Mm-hmm.
then you are given a choice. Often people argue that they are helpless because they are no choice. They have no choice to. But when you know what is happening, you have that awareness, you are given a choice. And that is where then you can make the decision whether you want to continue that lifestyle or not continue the lifestyle and make another alternative? Like, for example, sometimes, people ask me about certain more sensitive situations, like, like, suddenly a family member turn from, normal to bisexual. And after the work we do, we realize what is going on. The individual may still choose to be bisexual because that is the lifestyle already. So this is where, but the individual is empowered because they consciously know they make the decision. It's just like, for example, you can come for a family constellation work, discover that you are a smoker because of your grandmother,
Right.
or your father, but you can still continue smoking. But then you at least become aware, I am making this choice to smoke because of my father or my grandmother.
Right.
Then that action becomes meaningful. Then at one point, human being human, we will start to think, do I still want to do that for that person? That is where they will make the decision to make a second choice.
Okay.
But at least they are given the chance to make that decision. Rather than the few million people or few billion people who are still smoking, who don't even know why they are smoking, at
Exactly.
the end of the day, they need to curb it because the world say it's no good, but who cares about the world because we are all in this world where we are so self-centered anyway.
Right.
So the point is, there's no point telling a smoker, and smoking is bad for you. Come on, the government,
Yeah.
all the ugly pictures on the cigarettes, it's like, isn't that obvious enough? But why people still smoke? Why people still willing to buy the ugly packaging and then still smoke? Because they don't have a choice.
Yes.
But this is the difference for social smokers. It's funny how the word social smoking come about, because it's like people know that they are smoking because they are only smoking for a social context.
Right.
And it's so easy for them to say, okay, I don't want to smoke anymore because I don't need to smoke for any social, if there's no social event now. But why these people can make that choice, even though there's the nicotine, there's the this and the that, but the thing they can still stop. But why some people can't? Because they haven't find the reason why.
Okay. So that is what happens when they come to a family constellation session. They get enlightened and they get awakened about the situation. They
I
understand
won't
what's
say
happening.
enlightened. I would
No.
say they are aware.
They're
They are more
aware.
aware.
They're more
Because
aware.
yeah, because to use the word enlightened could be such too bombastic, because
All right.
yeah, everybody's perception of enlightenment is very different. Because some people smoke to gain enlightenment.
To get inspiration to do something,
Yeah,
their ideas.
correct. Yeah,
Yes.
like for example, the shamans or the people who are artists, sometimes they smoke in order to get inspiration.
Yes.
That is also another topic altogether, which of course we have to look it through the family field to really understand what is causing it. That's why, while simplistically speaking, is the father or the loss of power, but it might not always be true.
Right.
So that's why I can only say what I'm recommending today in this interview is mainly for people who is very aware I have a father issue, or that's why the method I give you in father becomes very helpful. But if you have a very good relationship with the father doesn't smoke, all this sort of thing, then I would really recommend that you look deeper into your family. Then we can find out about it. And usually, generally, for people who are social smokers who can stop smoking, you're not a smoker.
Yeah, they're not addict. They don't have an addiction problem. Yes.
Correct. That don't require really a healing per se. That's
right.
Yeah.
That's true. So, Kelvin, for people who are keen on finding out more about family constellation or that want to contact you, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Okay, if you are in Singapore, you can actually contact me through my office line at 9646 1698. Actually, we have a healing circle every month where we come together to do cases for individual. So that will be really helpful for any beginners who want to look into what is family constellation, who want to try out family constellation. Or you can also go onto Facebook and look for Heart of Sophia, Singapore. So you can, I will usually post articles on it, on family constellation or on different topics on astrology or that on it. So that will also be very helpful for anybody who wants to understand. If not, you can also go to our website at www.heartofsophia.com. So yeah, that will also be helpful. So mainly I will prefer to do face-to-face. If for overseas who would like to have my point of view, you can also do through Zoom. We can always arrange the meeting. You can also contact us through our Facebook Messenger. You can also reach to us. Our team will be there to support you from there. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. That's very good. I will also put a note in the description down below for the folks to be able to contact you.
Okay.
All right. So, Kelvin, before we end this interview session, any last words? What's your best advice for people who are trying to quit smoking, but they just can't quit and they have all these problems of not able to fight the cravings, not in control? What would you say is the best advice?
So I again go back to summarizing what I've said just now, that it's important to really look into how your family influence you in terms of smoking, whether it's your family or smokers, or whether it's your anybody in the family who had certain situations with smoking, and whether how close you are with this person who is having this problem. If all of these are not the situation, but just plainly you and your father has some disconnection, then my recommendation would really be to first start connecting with the father before you want to stop your addiction. Because you need to fill up the void with something else before you stop filling your void with smoking. So if you are able to heal with your father, it will definitely be a booster to you in terms of your smoking addiction. And this thing is not only a point of view of where I'm coming from, but many teachers in family constellation also seem to agree that the father is a very key figure to helping us to stop or curb smoking. So I would really highly encourage every viewer to really take that step to look into their relationship with their father in order to help them to deal with this smoking addiction.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much, Kelvin. Thank you very much for your time. We really enjoyed
No
ourselves
problem.
and learned so much about family constellation. And we look forward to hearing more about family constellation through your website and your Facebook.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Eddy. Thank you for supporting. Yeah.
Thank you.